And going off into that part of this argument may be beyond the scope of what Dr. Lee wants here as far as anthropology class, okay? I think I could argue the historical preservation of the Bible all through time. But that's a little different. To stick with the creation-evolution argument, was there a creator? Was the world created? And whether if you want to argue the historical accuracy of the Bible, that's, I think, a different subject than the creation-evolution argument. I don't base my belief in creation totally on the Bible. My belief that the world is not millions of years old is founded on scientific evidence. Let me give you just a little bit of it, let you analyze that. It is a fact that the world is spinning. I don't know too many folks would disagree with that. It is a fact the world spins about 1,046.6 miles an hour at the equator. Not too many folks disagree with that. It is also a fact that the world is slowing down. This year, 1994, we're going to have leap second. You can call 1-900-410 time and find out when it's going to be. Every year and a half or 2 years, we will have to have a leap second. I've got the articles in my suitcase of the previous ones. December 31st, New Year's Eve, 1990, was a leap second. I'm going to put December 31st of 90 was a leap second. June 30th of 92 was a leap second. It's Astronomy Magazine. You can look these dates up, and that's a fact. The Earth is slowing down. So I'm going to put that in the fact column. The Earth's spin is slowing. About 1,000th of a second per day seems to be the reasonable average. Okay, if the world is slowing down, then obviously it used to be going faster. That's fairly reasonable. How much faster could it go before it would totally upset the ecological systems down here? Could the days and nights be 9 hours, like Jupiter? 9 hours, 55 minutes total?
No, because you said there was a 24-hour day that you believed in the creation, so those hours were the same all the time, and it can't be slowing down.
I think the hours would have been maybe 23 and a half hours for a day.
That's 4,000 years. If you take out a second every 4 years.
6,000 years ago, it was 23 hours and 25 minutes.
That's right, so there's a whole day gone right there.
No, it was only 35 minutes. But you're straining at a gnat and swallowing a camel.
You said there were
24-hour
days. Hours were the same as they were now. You said that when you started.
Okay, I apologize. They were not. They were 23 and a half hour days.
Well,
today we don't even have a 24-hour day.
That's right.
23 hours, 56 minutes, and 48 seconds. So, okay, they were one day, one's rotation of the Earth. If the world is billions of years old, the slowing spin of the Earth today indicates it can't be billions of years old. There's no possible way you can go back billions of years, adding 1,000th of a second per day. Now, whether it's linear or geometric, I don't know, but it does put some kind of time limit. It is a fact the world is slowing down. So for somebody to tell me the world is billions of years old, that's dreaming. That's scientifically impossible. It cannot be true. So this theory ought to be rejected just on that basis alone. Let me give you a few more.
But you don't know what the maximum RPM could be, so how can you say it can't be?
We know that plants are very sensitive to daylight hours.
Yeah, but the plants may not have been on it all. You're assuming there were plants from the instant it was created, so it's a tautological argument. You're assuming that...
So the plants evolved this time, they were able to...
Well, if there weren't any plants in the very first place, and it wouldn't matter how fast, if it was a real hot mass in the first place, which I don't have to believe in, but the physics of it is pretty obvious. If it was a hot mass of goo at some point and then cooled down, it could be spinning like crazy if it was real hot. It wouldn't be any kind of
I would say...
Yeah, it'd be losing mass, sure.
I would say the evidence that it was never a hot mass of goo is extremely strong. Physical evidence. If you want to get into physical science on that, that's what I taught was physics, okay, physical science. But let's cover just a few more. The Earth is slowing down. That's a fact. Here's another one. The moon goes around the Earth. Nobody argues with that. 243,000 miles away at apogee. The moon is receding. We are losing our moon. Astronomers will tell you the moon is getting further away by 2 to 3 inches every year. It's leaving us. Well, if the moon is getting further away than it used to be, closer. You bring the moon back in closer, you got a problem because the moon causes the tides. The inverse square law says if you half the distance, you quadruple the attraction. So 30 or 40 million years ago, the tides would have drowned everything on the Earth twice a day. That's just 30 or 40 million, not billions. You can't tell me dinosaurs were here 70 million years ago when the tides would have destroyed the world 20 million years ago. That's not common sense. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Well, are you assuming that the Earth is therefore stationary?
No, the Earth has always been spinning.
Well, but if you're saying to your back and the moon would be closer to us, then aren't you assuming that the Earth is going to be in the same orbit position as well?
Right.
I mean, maybe the Earth is in...
Well, as far as the no, I'm saying the distance between the Earth and the Moon, as we waltz around the sun, you know, they pull each other out of orbit a little bit, but the distance between them is increasing. That's a fact.
Right.
Now, how do you interpret that fact?
If you go backwards, if what you're telling us now, since the moon is creeping away at the rate of 2 inches a year, that eventually it'll go away.
Right.
Well, I'm going to use your same techniques. I'm going to back calculate, and at one point the moon was hitting the Earth, because you're saying it can't spin. It has to be spinning in order to slow down. Well, in order to be moving away, it has to be at some position in the first place. It could never have been in an orbit to move from. It have to be on the surface of the Earth. The same thing with our temperature. If you go down in a coal mine, it gets hotter as you go down.
Stick with the
So
spin of
let's
the moon.
calculate the temperature back, and if you do that and say, gee, it's X amount of heat losing from the center out and go backwards like you're trying to do with this timeline, it'd be hot on the surface, and the moon would be sitting in the middle of Idaho somewhere like a big lump, and it would move out, move away at 2 inches a year, away you go. I mean, that's gradualism right there. Well, yeah, sure, but the whole idea of saying that we can't pick these things up in the middle and pick and choose which half we're going to look at. You can't extrapolate a process from the middle and say from an orbit, which we don't know, it's now moving 2 inches a year, therefore it's moving away. Well, okay, calculate backwards. That has to be zero at some point.
But see, the point it would be zero would be 20 to 30 million years ago. Or 50 million.
It's only 4,000 years old. How could you put it in
Which
a-
fits fine with the biblical account. If it was all created 6,000 years ago, the moon...
When it was created? In orbit or
I
on
can
the
calculate
surface?
back where it was. It was in orbit, but it wasn't. It was a little closer, not close enough to cause much difference. 6,000 years at 2 inches a year is insignificant. But when you try to say it's billions of years, it becomes very significant.
Well,
That's my point.
But that's gradualism. That's assuming that these processes, that's using the evolutionist view and saying that the processes happen gradually all the time.
Good
but
point.
they may
Isn't
not.
that what they do on carbon dating? They watch carbon decay for 3 days in the laboratory and assume it happened for millions of years at that rate? It's the very same assumptions.
But that's what you're using. You're using the carbon dating curve to tell me about the moon and the age of the Earth. I mean, you can't say the data stinks when you use it for carbon-14, but it's great for the age of the
Oh,
Earth.
I'm in favor of carbon-14 dating. We haven't got into that yet. I'm in favor of that. I understand the assumptions it's based on and the limitations of it. And I think students ought to be taught that. This is why it doesn't work for certain objects. And if a student...
Look it up in a book. They tell you that right away.
Sure. I taught high school. You ought to see what's in the high school books. It is not that way. Okay.
Oh, man, it wasn't in my high school books.
All right. Let's stick with this. You said my point. I don't know if you purposely or not purposely missed my point.
Not at all.
Okay.
I'm trying to follow your point. You keep picking and choosing which is
No, I'm trying to be consistent here. The moon is leaving us. That's a fact. If you interpret that back in time, it does put a time limit. Either the Earth had to be stuck to the moon, or it was all created, already in orbit, and it's moved out a few miles. It certainly doesn't falsify the creationist viewpoint. The fact that the moon is moving would fit fine into the creationist viewpoint. It was created this distance, it's now a little more, big deal.
Could the moon not have been moving exponentially, though? I mean, that is, I mean, gradualism works, uniformitarianism, I mean, works very well with a lot of things, but when you talk about the gravity, loss of gravity, if the Earth is slowing down, wouldn't the farther away the moon would get, the faster it would move? So possibly millions of years ago, it was not moving at 2 to 3 inches a year. It was maybe moving 2 to 3 inches per 100,000 years or 10,000 years.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned, I don't know if it's a linear line back in, or geometric, or logarithmic progression.
You know the equations for gravity, and you know he's absolutely right, that the farther you get away, the weaker the gravity, so it will move farther. As the farther it goes, it'll move faster. It'll move much more slowly when it's closer, and it could sit there for billions of years and move 100 millionth of an inch a year, 100 millionth of an inch. As soon as it gets out there, wham, gravity starts to fade, out it goes. That's perfectly consistent with the laws of gravity.
Get your calculator, Hammond, and figure that out. You'll find out that it puts a time limit of way less than billions of years. It doesn't fit the evolutionist time scale of 4.6 billion years ago, and then life coming here 3 million years ago.